Hello everybody, Zach at Feel Free to Argue, and I'm here to, I'm going to take a break from talking about Iraq for a while because it's time to talk about our next war, our war in Iran, because we're just about out of time to talk about this. It's coming, it's going to be here before we even know it, and the time to do something about it is now, before it starts. In this video, I'm going to talk about the preparations that we're making for war, how it can happen, and why it can happen, why it's a bad idea, and what you should do about it. First, let's talk about the preparations that are being made for war, because if you look around, you can see these everywhere. And I just did a brief web search this morning, and I came up with a ton of stuff. Most of it was all in this one article, but I found bits and pieces and references to a lot of these things in a lot of different articles. They were just all nicely condensed in one article for me here. This was a guy named Dan Hamburg in the Santa Monica Mirror earlier this year. According to international experts, the U.S. declared economic war against Iran on March 20th. On that day, the U.S. Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network called on the world's financial institutions to stop doing business with Iran, making it much more difficult for Iran to engage in global commerce. Now, there haven't been any shots fired as a result of this, but I think the shooting war is next up. And we can see all the preparations for that further on in the same article. Hamburg goes on. And this is just like a list of things. The March 11th resignation of CENTCOM Commander Admiral William Fallon, who, according to well-publicized Esquire magazine article, openly opposed Bush's Iran policy and was a lone voice against taking military action to stop the Iranian nuclear program. In fact, we should all be grateful to Admiral Fallon, because there already was an incident that went all the way up to the chain of command. One of these incidents with the small Iranian boats coming and threatening a U.S. ship in disputed waters. And the U.S. ship wanted to fire on the Iranian ships, and they only stopped because Admiral Fallon issued a direct order for them not to fire on the ship. So, save for Admiral Fallon, we'd be at war with Iran already. So we all owe an enormous debt of gratitude to this man. The recent removal of Vice Admiral John Stufflebeam, commander of the 6th Fleet, Mediterranean Sea, also known to be a critic of the administration's war plans. See a trend here? 2 U.S. warships took up positions off Lebanon last month. According to U.S. News and World Report, the United States would want its warships in the eastern Mediterranean in the event of a military action against Iran. Next point, the United States has 2 aircraft carrier strike groups stationed in the Persian Gulf, with at least 1 additional group reportedly on the way. The Israeli airstrike against Syria last September was advertised as an attack on a nuclear facility. Current speculation is that the real purpose of the raid was to force Syria to switch on the targeting electronics for newly received Russian anti-aircraft defenses. Knowing the electronic signatures of these systems would reduce the risks for U.S. and Israeli warplanes heading to Iranian targets. Israel conducted its largest military exercises ever, beginning the week of April 6th. This exercise simulated missile strikes from Iran, Lebanon, and Syria. Wonder why the Israelis are getting concerned about this? One day after a March visit from Vice President Cheney, the Saudi government announced national plans to deal with any sudden nuclear and radioactive hazards that may affect the kingdom. This announcement came following warnings of possible attacks on Iran's nearby nuclear reactors. According to former UN Chief Weapons Inspector Scott Ritter, the Pentagon has contracted for additional bunker buster bombs and planes to carry them. Delivery is due this month. The oncoming monsoon season, which would have carried radioactive fallout by wind and rain to countries east of Iran, including Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, other countries with nuclear weapons, narrows the window for optimal launch of an air attack. That's a lot of signals. And I think we can reasonably assume that with this many signals, there's some clear intent behind it. But we don't have to assume, because there are lots of people telling us this is exactly what's going on. Ritter, who was a former UN weapons inspector in Iraq, said there's no doubt in my mind that the United States is planning right now, as we speak, a military strike against Iran. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and almost every senior U.S. military official has pretty much acknowledged the same. We take a look at the military buildup, we take a look at the rhetoric, we take a look at the diplomatic posturing, and I would say that it's a virtual guarantee that there will be a limited aerial strike against Iran in the not-so-near future or the not-so-distant future that focuses on the Islamic Revolution Guards Corps. Another source. This is from the Guardian newspaper in February of this year. Vincent Canestraro, a Washington-based intelligence analyst who worked for the CIA and the National Security Council, shared the source's assessment that the Pentagon planning was well underway. Planning is going on in spite of public disavowals by Gates. That's Robert Gates, the defense secretary. Targets have been selected for a bombing campaign against nuclear sites. It's quite advanced. The military assets to carry this out are being put in place. He added, "We are planning for war. It is incredibly dangerous." Colonel Sam Gardner from the same article, a former Air Force officer who carried out war games with Iran as the target, supported the view that planning for an airstrike was underway. Gates said there is no planning for war. We know this is not true. He possibly meant there is no plan for an immediate strike. It was sloppy wording. I don't think there was anything sloppy about it. All right.